Without trying to preempt the BHPA's investigation into Mick Bostock's accident, here's my attempt to make some sense of the weather conditions what prevailed on that day. I think most of us would agree that there was wave about. Indeed, Mick, just before takeoff, pointed out the lenticular clouds at Dale Head, at the head of Edale Valley. But we've flown in wave many times before, but not experienced anything as extreme as on that day. So here's my interpretation of flying in wave, and then we'll look at what differed on the day. Here's a classic wave formation. Let's look at what you could expect depending where you are in the phase of the wave. If you're in this position, you can expect smooth, steady lift without the need to 360. If you happen to turn downwind, you'll soon outrun the wave. In this position, you'll sink like a stone. And if you turn back into wind and try and reconnect with the wave, you've got to go through the nasty rotor, turbulent air underneath the crest before you connect with the lift again. So that, in its simplified form, is classic wave. Not at all scary. It can be uncomfortable at times, but it's perfectly doable. If you stand on the hillside, you can feel each phase of the wave passing through. The wind picking up at the front of the wave, the turbulent air in between, and it dying off at the back of the wave. Other, more technical guys might disagree with what I've just said. I don't think I'm far out. So what differed on the 12th of December? Well, for a start, the winds were very light and weren't due to pick up until mid to late afternoon. The extremely low temperatures of the night before left a layer of dense cold air in the valley, as seen here.
Going.
That was my first flight of the day. Took off about 11 o'clock and was on the ground by about 11:30 as the wind had died right off. Well, apart from tripping over and falling flat on my face in snow, there were no untowards with that flight. So what went wrong with the second flight, nearly half an hour later? As I pointed out earlier, it had been a very cold night, so the air in the valley was bitterly cold, stagnant and heavy, and above an inversion layer, the wind was warmer and more mobile. As the prevailing winds pick up, the struggle to move the cold stagnant air, what movement they're doing part in it, gives us the ridge lift earlier in the day. was that smooth laminar ridge lift which gave us a false sense of security. Because while we were cruising the lift in what appeared to be benign conditions, the prevailing wind above the cold air was picking up, and it was this what was beginning to form all the wave clouds scattered around us. But why was this any different to normal wave? Well, if you've never heard of it before, it's here I'm going to introduce you to the Kelvin-Helmholtz instability. Don't be put off if you've never heard of it before. I hadn't until a couple of weeks ago. So let's go back to the previous picture. The warmer air mass, which is picking up speed, drags the cold air with it. But the cold air is reluctant to move, and all what happens is a wave forms on the interface. This interface is initially very stable and has no effect on the air underneath. In actual fact, the ridge lift becomes very laminar and smooth. As the prevailing wind in the warm air mass picks up, there's very little effect of it felt on the ridge. This is because the heavy cold stagnant air is reluctant to be dragged along, and the pilots flying the ridge feel nothing but a slight increase in wind speed, which makes the day seem even better. What the increase in the prevailing wind has done, though, is increase the amplitude of the wave, as shown on the picture above. And it's this increase in amplitude which gives us the first warning that things are amiss. If you're positioned here on the ridge, everything seems okay. But here, and you'll be going up and down like a yo-yo, as Chris Dervin experienced about 5 minutes before Mick's accident. In front, Posh James is heading down on Big Ears, and to the right of centre, Helen is heading over the road, trying to land anywhere she can. We know things are going amiss.
It's going a bit weird now, isn't it? Keep your eye on what these buses do. It's funny stuff, isn't it?
At exactly the same time as Chris was experiencing these conditions, I was experiencing the same, but beyond the Roman road. I didn't need any persuading to head straight back to base. And if you think that this is as bad as conditions got, then read up on the Kelvin-Helmholtz instability. Because what the two scientists discovered was that as the warmer airspeed increased and the amplitude of the wave increased, it reached a point where suddenly everything becomes unstable, and this happens. And this is the position that Mick, myself and a few others got into on the 12th of December. The next clip shows the end of that day's flying. Things were beginning to ease off, although it was still rough as I got lower down. It doesn't show the really turbulent air above the spot where Mick died. I won't show that, it's too upsetting. Depending on the moisture content of the air, the Kelvin-Helmholtz instability can be invisible or can appear as clouds. And if you think this is just an old man talking a load of twaddle, here's a photo taken exactly a week later, in North Lincolnshire. You wouldn't want to fly in those clouds. And here's a still from the last flight on the 12th of December, nowhere near as dramatic, but equally as deadly. Now it may be that I'm wrong in everything I've conjectured, but if I'm not, it certainly gives us pause for thought.